So this is going to be another video that I have already done in the past. It has been a while since I have done this, but since I filmed and released the original one, obviously the content's got better, the quality of the content has gotten better, the flow of the videos has improved, so I wanted to make an updated version that was going to be still the same amount of good information and valuable information, but in a more condensed version, and that was a little bit better to view. And then also, like I've said in previous videos, I'm going through and I am updating for 2024 pretty much all of my guide videos to give you all the, especially new players coming into Warpath, the latest and greatest information in a more updated format. So with that being said, we're not going to waste any time. Let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about army groups and army group tactic points. Welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well. As always, we are not going to waste a whole lot of time. We're going to get in the video pretty quick, but before we do, if you enjoyed this video, get any value out of this video, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already so you don't miss any future uploads. And like always, if you are a new player in Warpath and know another player that is new to the game and might benefit from seeing this video, or any of the videos on the channel for that matter, feel free to let them know about the channel. Feel free to share the video with them. It's very much appreciated. So now let's jump in and start talking about the very basics when it comes to army group and army group tactic points. Now to access your tactics and your tactic points, you're going to go over to your research center and you will see two buttons, research and tactics. All you've got to do is click on your tactics and it will pop you right into your army group tactics center, if you will. Now, the overview of what you've got going on here is you have got two sections. You have got command and coordination. Now, the very basic difference between the two is going to be that command is going to be for those of you that are leading army groups, and coordination is going to be for those of you that are donating or sending units to army groups. And then you've got your actual army group tactic points here. Now you can get a max of 60 army group tactic points, and there are a variety of ways you can go about getting those tactic points. And you can see the proficiency level here is level 60. You get 1 point per level that you increase up to level 60, which is where you get the 60 total points from. Now these points, these army group tactic points, are what you're actually going to be using and allocating in a different kind of way. However, it's going to be different for every single one of you more than likely. And we're going to break that down a little bit later in this video, but those points are going to be what you can allocate in both your command and coordination tabs. Now, next to your proficiency level 60 here, you'll see this little information button. If you click on that, it will show you a complete breakdown on how you can go about earning army group tactic points. You can get them from killing Raven troops, you can kill them or get them from killing Raven bunkers and getting the loot, and then you can also get them from killing enemy troops. Now let's pivot and start breaking down these two big sections, the command and coordination sections, more in depth. So we're going to start with command, and this is for those of you that are going to be leading army groups. Now the buffs that you are going to be able to obtain through the command tab here are going to be the buffs that get applied to all of the units in your army group. So the first and biggest draw to the command tab, especially if you are leading army groups, is you're going to obviously want as many troops to join your army group as possible. Now, when you first start leading an army group, when you first start out in the game, you are going to have just a set number of troops that can join your army group. Once you max out your command tab here in the army group tactics section, you're going to have a max of 15 units that can join your army group. And 15 is a lot better than 10, for example. So you can see this first box here is going to give you troop capacity of +1. And then the second middle box here, troop capacity +2. And then the last one is going to increase your troop capacity +2 more, which for a grand total of 5 additional troops that you can have added to the army group you are leading. Now, in addition to just increasing the troop capacity of your army group, through the command tab, you're also going to be able to increase a variety of different things. But when we're talking about leading army groups, we're talking about how to be the most effective and efficient when in combat against other players. So for example here, you can increase Raven damage resist and destroy Raven bunker and loot their supply, dropped supply. Like, don't worry about that. Like, that is pretty useless, especially once you get into the mid and late game. Only this middle column here is what you are going to be interested in. You can see this bottom column here is damage dealt to Raven, and then drop supplies again. Forget that, ignore it. It does not matter, and it will not make any benefit, or it will not make any difference to you when you get into the mid and late game. And even early game, I would still advise you to stay away, because this game is built on war, and you're going to be fighting other players, and you're going to be fighting other players a lot, and you want to get as much of an advantage as you possibly can. So in the command tab, just focus on this middle row right here, because this is going to increase the firepower and HP of the troops in your army group. And then when we scroll towards the end here, same thing, the middle column is going to further increase the firepower and further increase the HP of all of the troops in your army group. Now, when you get to this last section in between these two big troop capacity ones, you do want to, if you are leading an army group, make sure that you add points to the mechanized division and special operations group, because in addition to the firepower and HP we just discussed, you are going to get uniform army group damage of 5%, and then army group damage resist of plus 5%. Now, when it says uniform, that is if you were leading an army group of the same type. For example, if you were leading a tank army group, some people have army groups where they'll be leading, but they want a variety of troops. So they might want some light tanks and some helicopters, or some light tanks and some main battle tanks, but they all still fall under the umbrella of tanks, so they are a quote-unquote uniform army group. Right above that, we have mixed army and combined arms. Now, this is going to be for mixed army groups. This is going to be adding damage and damage resist, just like these two down here, but these two are, like we've talked about, for uniform army groups. These are for mixed army groups. So for example, if you had tanks paired also with artillery in the same army group, or artillery paired with infantry in the same army group, if you've got multiple different troop types in the same army group, that is where that is going to come into play. But the vast majority of players run army groups with similar units in them. So all tanks, all artillery, all infantry. If you don't, obviously you can get as customized with this as you want or need, but that it's situation by situation basis. So whatever, if you are leading army groups, if you do find yourself tending to run the same kind of units in army groups, great, go with the bottom two. If you find yourself running a mixed army group, invest in the top two. All right, so now we're in the coordination tab. Now this section is going to be for those of you that are sending units to army groups. Now, something to note, all of the buffs you are going to be obtaining from the coordination section are going to be applied to your unit or units specifically that you were sending to army groups, not the other units in an army group. Now, within the coordination section as well, you're going to be able to give your units that you are actually sending out to army groups a variety of buffs, ranging from troop firepower and HP to damage and damage resist, and then also officer skill damage. But now the catch is it is for camp-specific units. So for me, for example, and this is going to be different for everybody, but my three main troops are a Liberty light tank and then 2 Liberty artillery units. Those are the units that I tend to send to army groups the most, and they all happen to be Camp Liberty. So that is why I have invested my tactic points in Camp Liberty unit buffs specifically. So I'm going to get Camp Liberty firepower, Camp Liberty HP, and then scrolling on, I'm also going to get Camp Liberty damage resist, and then Camp Liberty damage. And now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Not on face value, right? Because if you find yourself running Vanguard units primarily, just like me with Liberty, then just invest in the Vanguard or Martyr's Watch or whatever you do. But the tricky part is when you run units from multiple camps, what do you allocate it towards to maximize your return on investment, so to speak? Now, just like in the command section, in the coordination section, you also have these 3 big ones here. And this is going to be applied to all of your units, whether they are in a specific camp that you've invested in or not. So all of my troops are going to be getting HP of plus 1%, firepower of plus 2%, and then officer skill damage of plus 2%, regardless of whatever camp they're in. But again, the big question is, well, what if I run multiple units from multiple camps? What do I do? And this is where it can get a little bit tricky. But we are going to help you figure out how to allocate your 60 points most efficiently. So you can see here at the top, and it will show you the same for you in your command and coordination. It will show you how many points you've got allocated in each one. So I've got 35 points allocated in the command section and 25 in the coordination section. And that grouping right there is what I consider more of like the hybrid point allocation, because it is for players. I find myself, for example, I work a lot during the week, right? Most of you guys do too. You've got work, you've got family, kids, whatever the case may be. I know everybody's situation's different, but for me, right, especially when we're in a Theater of Conquest event, a lot of times I find myself leading army groups if I'm not streaming or not recording or whatever. But if I am streaming or if I am recording footage, a lot of times I will just send units to army groups so that way I can focus on trying to get footage from the actual fights that are taking place. So I run more of a hybrid setup because I also have the hurdle of work. If I'm working, then I'll just get online real quick, send units out, and then get back off. But if I've got a little time, I don't mind running an army group either. So I've got more of a balanced, or like I said, hybrid setup, so that way I can be efficient whether I am leading or donating to an army group. But we've also got players in our alliance, and I'm sure some of you are similar to this, where you have the ability to be on at pretty much any given time, and you just really, really like to run army groups. And in that case, you would probably want to go really heavy into the command section with your points and start allocating. Again, forget the Raven ones. Those are a waste of time, but you can also juice up all of these. So it doesn't matter if you're running a uniform army group or a mixed army group, you're going to be effective either way. Now, on the other side of that, there are a lot of you that probably aren't able to run army groups as frequently, and you find yourself donating the vast majority of the time to army groups. And in that case, you're going to want to probably go really heavy into the coordination section. And this is where you can start to throw in points in multiple different camps if you're donating to army groups a lot. And you can just buff up all of the troops from your camps if you're running multiple from different camps. So again, it's situation by situation basis. If you are real heavy on one or the other, then invest in that one. Whether you're leading pretty heavily army groups, command is going to be your choice. If you're donating a lot, then go coordination and just load your points into one of those two sections. If you're like me and you find yourself running and donating army groups, then I would just split it up into that more hybrid setup that I have just showed you. Now, for those of you that have stuck around this long into the video, I have got one more bonus tip for you, and something that might help you, and something that is going to be good to keep in mind when your army, or when your alliance rather, is starting to form army groups in big battles. This is something to keep in mind, so you know you're going to be sending your units to what is going to be the most effective army group, more than likely, out of all of the options you've got. So what I mean by that is, and I've obviously just kind of blocked out the name here, but this is an army group, or somebody that had an army group started in our alliance. I just took a screenshot of it, but something to note, and I've got another picture to follow after this, so make sure you're sticking around for this bonus tip if you are new and don't know this. But when you've got army groups running with your alliance, and if you've got multiple, you'll see a whole list of them. But you can see underneath the army group leaders information here, you can see army group info, and this will show you how many points that army group leader has got allocated to their command section, which is the section that is used for those leading army groups. So if you see anybody with 35 points, you know that's probably going to be a pretty decent army group that you can join, because they're going to have the max 15 out of 15 units, which you can see that. And they're also going to have the other buffs that come along with it. So 35 in command is the kind of like perfect number you're looking for out of somebody that is leading an army group. If you see somebody that's got 0 command points allocated, or 10 or 15 or something less than 25 when you get into the later game, because of course the early game this isn't so applicable because nobody will have the full 60 points yet. But in the mid and late game, where everybody's going to have a full 60 points they can allocate, if somebody is running an army group and they do not have a full 15 unit capacity army group, stay away, because that group is more than likely going to get throttled. Now, another little bonus tip here is if you actually click on the army group, you will pull up the army group info here. Again, I blocked out the name. This is the same army group that was open though, and you can actually see how many coordination points that the people joining your army group have allocated. So you're going to have a pretty good idea if their units are going to be sufficient or not in your army group. So the magic number you are looking for here is going to be 25. Now, again, in the early stages of the game, probably be a little bit more lenient with this, why everybody is building up their 60 tactic points. But once you get into the mid and late game, when everybody should definitely have their 60 army group tactic points, your minimum number you're looking for is going to be 25. Like Gold here, he put 60. All 60 points are in coordination. That's telling us, okay, he's joining army groups way more frequently than he's leading them. So his units are going to be juiced up and he's going to be fine to go. But the minimum you're looking for is that 25. That is a magic number that you want to see for anybody joining your army group. If somebody joins and doesn't have 25, then you might want to message them privately, have a conversation with them or something like that, or just completely remove them from your group because they don't know how to really allocate their points. Unless it happens to be a situation where the person that sent you a unit is also somebody that is running groups a lot. Maybe they've invested heavily into the command and that's why they're lacking a little bit in coordination. That's a situation where it would make sense, but just kind of take it case by case basis. That's going to wrap us up for the video. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, or opinions that you would like to share, feel free to share those in the comments on this video. If you have made it this far into the video, if you have access to Discord and are not already in our community Discord server, the link to that is going to be in the description of this video. Click on that link. It'll take you directly into the community Discord server. Whether you're a new player and have questions, want to learn some more, or if you're a veteran player and just want to come hang out, get to know more people in the community, doesn't matter. Absolutely everybody is welcome. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. We'll see you on the next one.